In this episode, we'll explore why today's RV buyers arrive more informed, but often more overwhelmed than ever before, and how that shift has changed the role of third-party inspections in the RV buying process. This video is valuable for RV buyers, RV sales professionals, dealership management, RV inspectors, anyone involved in modern RV transactions. There was a time when most RV buyers arrived at a dealership with very little information. They flipped through colorful brochures. They asked a few questions during a brief walkthrough. And they relied heavily on the salesperson's guidance to understand what they were looking at. In many cases, the dealership was the buyer's primary, if not only, source of knowledge. If something needed to be explained, the buyer expected it would be. If something required attention, they assumed it would be mentioned. And if something was important, they trusted that someone would point it out. That level of trust wasn't necessarily blind. It was simply the structure of how information flowed at the time. The dealership informed the buyer, and the buyer made decisions based on what they were told. There were fewer outside voices, fewer competing opinions, fewer places to independently verify information. For many buyers, the process felt more straightforward, even if it wasn't always more informed. But that world no longer exists. Today's buyers arrive very differently. They've already spent hours, sometimes weeks, researching online. They've watched walkthrough videos, engaged forum discussions, scrolled through social media groups, compared opinions from owners, technicians, and other buyers. They've seen best-case scenarios and worst-case stories. And by the time they step onto a dealership lot, they are no longer starting from zero. They are arriving with information, but not always with clarity. Because while access to information has increased dramatically, context has not always kept pace. Buyers often know what can go wrong, but they don't always know what is typical, what is manageable, what is expected, and what truly matters. So instead of arriving uninformed, many buyers now arrive over-informed, but under-oriented. And that shift has changed everything. It has changed how buyers ask questions, how they interpret information, how they respond to uncertainty, and ultimately how they make decisions. Because today's buyer is not just evaluating the RV, they are evaluating the information surrounding it. And in that environment, clarity, communication, and trust have become more important than ever. Modern RV buyers are surrounded by information, but very little of that information provides context. Online discussions often highlight what can go wrong, but rarely explain what is normal, manageable, or expected. A single failure story can be repeated thousands of times without the maintenance history, the timeline, or the real cause ever being explained. What was once a rare issue can start to feel common. And because algorithms tend to reward fear-mongering, buyers often see the worst-case scenarios first. Today's buyers often arrive with a working awareness of what can go wrong. They've heard about water damage, electrical issues, roof leaks, sealant deterioration, slide-out failures, and the stories everyone remembers, expensive surprises discovered after delivery. In many cases, they've seen these issues discussed repeatedly in forums, in social media groups, in review videos, and comment threads. Over time, those stories begin to shape perception. But knowing that something can happen is not the same as understanding how often it happens, how serious it actually is, or whether it's typical, manageable, or truly a cause for concern in a specific RV. That's where the gap begins. Because information without context doesn't create confidence. It often creates uncertainty. A buyer may recognize the term water intrusion, but not understand the difference between past evidence, active damage, or a condition that simply requires monitoring. They may hear sealant deterioration and assume failure, when in reality it may represent routine maintenance. They may see a long inspection report and interpret length as severity. Not because they are uninformed, but because they lack the framework to interpret what they're seeing. And that's what makes today's buyer different. They don't arrive unaware. They arrive aware, but without orientation. And that distinction matters. Because when awareness is paired with uncertainty, it often becomes emotional. Buyers begin to anticipate problems. They become more sensitive to language, more cautious in their decisions, more concerned about making a mistake they can't undo. So buyers don't just arrive informed. They often arrive emotionally loaded, carrying not only information, but the weight of everything they've heard, read, and imagined. And unless that is understood and addressed properly, even accurate information can feel overwhelming, and even normal findings can feel like warning signs. That is why context matters. And that is why professional communication matters even more. By the time many buyers walk into a dealership, they may already be carrying invisible emotional weight. They may be excited but nervous, optimistic but cautious, ready to buy but afraid of making a big financial mistake. And for many families, this purchase means far more than simply buying a vehicle. For a buyer, it may represent a major financial commitment, a long-planned retirement dream, the first step into full-time travel, or a major lifestyle change. That emotional significance changes how buyers process risk. Historically, many buyers relied on visual confirmation and walkthrough demonstrations. If the slides extended, the lights came on, and the appliances appeared to function. Most people felt satisfied. But that level of reassurance no longer feels sufficient to many modern buyers. Today, buyers understand, rightly or wrongly, that many RV issues are not obvious during a casual walkthrough. They have learned that some problems reveal themselves later. And that creates a quiet but powerful question in the buyer's mind. What else don't I know about this RV's history? In many other industries, independent inspections are considered completely standard. They are not seen as confrontational. They are not treated as signs that the buyer is being difficult. And they are not usually interpreted as a lack of trust. They are simply understood as part of a responsible buying process. Home buyers hire home inspectors. Boat buyers hire marine surveyors. Aircraft buyers often hire pre-purchase evaluators. Commercial equipment buyers frequently do the same. In each of those situations, an independent inspection is viewed as a normal step in due diligence. It helps the buyer better understand the condition of the asset before taking ownership. It provides clarity. It helps identify risk. And it reduces the chance of costly surprises after the transaction is complete. That is how many buyers naturally view RV inspections as well. To them, requesting a third-party inspection does not feel unusual. It does not feel adversarial. And it usually does not feel like an accusation. It feels responsible. It feels practical. It feels like what a careful buyer should do before making a major purchase decision. And in many cases, it has very little to do with distrust. In fact, many buyers who request inspections are not assuming something is wrong. What they are often saying is, this is a major purchase, and I want to make an informed decision. That's a very different mindset. From the buyer's perspective, requesting an inspection is often not a rejection of the dealership's credibility. It is simply an effort to gain independent clarity before committing financially and emotionally. When that distinction is understood properly, inspections stop feeling like resistance and start looking more like a normal and responsible part of modern due diligence. This is where misunderstanding often begins. From a dealership perspective, inspections may feel like they introduce risk into the transaction and shift control of the narrative to the customer. From a buyer's perspective, inspections reduce risk. Both viewpoints are logical, but they exist in tension. And when that tension is not acknowledged, buyers may interpret hesitation or discomfort as something more concerning than it really is. That misunderstanding is rarely intentional. It usually happens because buyers and dealerships are starting from two very different emotional positions. When buyers request an inspection, they are usually not asking someone to find problems. They are asking, is this RV consistent with what I've been told? Are there risks I should understand? Can someone independently explain what I'm seeing? Am I making a responsible decision? That is a very different mindset than many people assume. They are not searching for perfection. They are searching for clarity. And understanding that distinction changes the entire conversation. When buyers feel overwhelmed, small communication gaps can quickly become much larger than they should. A simple lack of explanation can feel like avoidance. A routine maintenance item can feel alarming. And a detailed inspection report can feel threatening, even when it was never intended that way. Most of the time, this does not happen because anyone is being dishonest or unprofessional. It happens because buyers and dealerships are often experiencing the same transaction very differently. Buyers are processing the transaction emotionally. They are thinking about risk, regret, and whether they are making the right decision. Dealerships, on the other hand, are processing the transaction operationally. They are focused on inventory, timelines, paperwork, logistics, and helping the transaction move forward. Both perspectives are understandable. But when those two perspectives are not aligned, misunderstandings can grow quickly. That is why this matters. Because bridging that gap does not require selling differently. It requires understanding differently. And when that understanding improves, communication improves with it. Third-party inspections did not become common because RVs suddenly became worse. They became common because buyers became more informed and more uncertain at the same time. That combination changed the marketplace. And understanding the modern RV buyer mindset is the foundation for everything that follows. Because inspections are not really about mistrust. They are about confidence and peace of mind. And that is what every buyer is ultimately looking for when they sign the paperwork and drive away. In the next video, we'll explore why third-party inspections are so often misunderstood and why many buyers and dealerships believe they are talking about the same thing, when in reality they are not. If this reflects what you're seeing in today's RV market, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and follow future episodes as we continue breaking down how inspections fit into the buying process. For those interested in professional standards and inspector training, the Professional Association of RV Inspectors offers additional resources, and you'll find expanded insights in the book, What RV Buyers Wish Dealerships Understood About Third-Party Inspections, available on Amazon.